Welcome to Retirement Rescue Radio, a show specifically designed to help retirees and pre-retirees maximize their financial efficiency so you can live the retirement lifestyle you've always imagined. Your host is Nate Miller, investment advisor representative and author of the CPR Retirement Rescue Roadmap. Nate discusses thoughts and ideas from some of today's most knowledgeable professionals in the field of finance. He offers strategies along the way to help you make better financial decisions so you can maximize your retirement. This is Retirement Rescue Radio.
All right, Retirement Rescue Radio listeners, I'm your host, Nate Miller, and we've got a very special episode. We have Myranda Zarlengo on with us today. Myranda, welcome.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
You bet. Thanks for coming on. So today I've got Myranda on here because she is going to be running for a spot on school board, and she is wanting to make a difference. So she has seen an area that concerns her, and instead of, just complaining about it, like a lot of us, sometimes tend to do a lot of, she's actually getting involved and making a difference. And so Myranda, if you'd like, tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of where you came from, how you grew up, and why you're doing what you're doing right now.
Well, I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. I am one of four, very busy household. My mom did in-home childcare growing up. I went to KU. After that experience, fell in love with Lawrence. I used to joke that I was going to retire here. But after KU, went back to Chicago. My mom and I then started a childcare center, which she now owns and runs with my sister. They now have two, but I helped start both of those. My background, my degrees in early childhood education. I decided 6 years ago, after living in Chicago, to move here with my daughter, who was a toddler at that point. And her and I moved here. I wanted to raise her in Lawrence. Just great community, family focused. And I knew that we could do this here. Her and I could get involved and become a part of the community. And it's been better than I could have imagined.
Right. I think you and I have that in common. I came to Lawrence in 2001, at that point, transferring to come here for college, and never left. So ended up meeting my wife, who was born and raised in Lawrence. So that makes her a townie. And so it's a great place to raise kids. I grew up on a farm, and this is not that big of a town. It's still, you can be really close and yet still have the benefits of living in a somewhat decently sized town, in my opinion.
Even though I grew up in Chicago suburbs, it was a small town. It was kind of the last south suburbs. So it was the last farm kind of suburban community until all the farms. And so I know small town, but I did live in the city. I lived in Chicago for 15 years after college, and the childcare centers are in the suburbs, so suburb I grew up in. And then, they added another one. So that is very busy. I help my mom now still, just advising on staffing issues and communication with parents, and I'm glad I can still contribute.
Great. And so early childhood education, that actually plays into what we're going to be talking about today, and even why you're wanting to do what you're doing. So I guess now that the platform is yours, go ahead and tell my audience what it is that you're wanting to do and why you're doing it.
So I have a going to be second grader at Langston Hughes, and my experience, let's just say some of the challenges of COVID, but then put on top some of the, let's say, reading challenges my daughter is currently still having. In my experience, I was really having to advocate for her really hard, asking a lot of questions, bringing teams together, she was tested at school. They do national testing twice a year. And they even did last year. And I'll say that from a reading perspective, when tested in November, she was 75% of kindergarten in reading, which pretty much says that COVID online learning had no impact on her at all, other than, she's behind. So then at that point, I brought a team together and said, okay, what are we going to do? That was in November. We did it again in May, and I just didn't really have the results or the information that I was really hoping. I was really hoping for some guidance.
So May of this year.
May of this year. Just this past May, and let's look at, hey, how did our from first conversation till now, and results, and they're looking for recommendations. And I really am honestly disappointed in the feedback I received. And I'm fighting to advocate for her. That's what I will do. But the whole time I was thinking about all the parents that are in a similar position, maybe not with second grader. You could be a sophomore and have the same challenges. Not just from academics, but there's lots of other elements going on. And I was, from that disappointment, I was, turns into frustration. And I'm here because there's a lot of kids that need someone to advocate for them. And that's the main reason why I'm doing this. So I have the ability and, let's just say, personality to ask some tough questions if need be, and look for accountability. That's what I'm here for. I'm looking for accountability in our schools.
Okay. So then what were some of the things that, I guess, that were in place that you didn't feel were adequate, and some things that you would like to change in order to make them better?
Well, if you're going to test the students, let's make sure that we have in place some triggers that are going to set off, the next step of events. For example, if there's a child that is, let's say under 3% in a test, and that's why they take the test. Let's make sure that the teachers and the counselors and the reading specialists and the principal, they know what next steps are to support the parents and support the child. Parents need support too. We're asking questions, what could we do? And maybe some aren't, but maybe they need to know that it's time to ask some of those questions and know that we might be going down a track that could be challenging. Let's get in front of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I know that I've had a lot of conversations with different parents that had kids either in public schools, private schools, the whole gamut, right? And in the distance learning was very difficult for a lot of them. Certain people I think thrived at it, but I feel like the vast majority of them did not. I know when my son, he just turned 8 in the first part of July, did not do well with with the online learning for the small amount of time that they had it. Definitely no. So if that was going to remain the norm, it would not have worked.
Well, and that's, like I said, I just am, I will say, in my career now today, I work in organizational change through technology, looking for automation and setting up systems to, let's say, make things more effective. Along the lines of that requires a lot of change, and that's where the change management comes in. And when I look at something such as this example, a low test score, okay, now what events need to take place in order to manage and improve on the situation. And so that's what I'm also bringing that lens to the table here, so that we can point out some areas that we can get in front of this. I mean, if I wasn't asking these questions and just assuming that it's going to work itself out, I really know that my daughter was going to end up in even more of a challenging place. I mean, I'm concerned about this year. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, because you've been attending some meetings recently where some of these issues have been brought up. But I think kind of what you were alluding to a little bit earlier, you aren't afraid to ask some of the tough questions that it seems like other people are. So what have been some of the questions that have been asked, and how have they not quite hit the mark?
Well, I will say this, there's been 4 forums so far with the other candidates, and honestly, most of the questions have been very, I would say they're more challenging from, let's say, social, political challenges that are honestly very divisive in nature, and that in itself is a problem too, right? We have a community of kids that need to be educated, and going down some of those tracks are just going to distract us from getting these kids what they need, removing barriers, and really helping them push ahead. So
yes, before Republican or Democrat or liberal or libertarian we're all Americans. And even before that, we're all people. And we've got far more in common, I feel like, than we do with people than we do not in common. And I feel like we're all trying to come to the same conclusion. Everybody wants a better life for themselves, better life for their family, whatever that is. It's just we seem to have very differing and very strong opinions on how to get to that end. And I heard someone, actually, it was a book that I had read. It was talking about having an argument with someone, and how here in Western culture, we tend to argue because we're trying to prove why we are right. We're not trying to understand why someone else might have a different opinion. And I feel like sometimes if we're able to understand why someone might have a different opinion, that can help both of us start to move to a position to where now we can actually talk about the solving the problem, rather than just butting heads thinking this is why you're wrong. No, this is why you're wrong. Right.
Absolutely. Taking this initiative and making this jump into this role, honestly, it's about making the decision, right? Gathering information. How many people will these decisions affect? How can we, look at the most vulnerable groups and make sure that we're providing what they need, but looking at the students as a whole, what do they need? And it's different for every child. And I am concerned that we are going to go and just almost zoom over last year and get right back on track to some of the strategic planning that the administration has, and not pause and say, okay, where are our students actually really at? I really hope that we can manage their feelings, as we all experience this, but they certainly, in my opinion, were put into a very challenging position to be educated at home and Zoom, and teachers were put through a lot too with the varieties of learning, but the kids, they were, in my opinion, the population that suffered the most through this. And that's really upsetting to me. I will tell you that. That's another big initiative here. Why aren't we putting our kids first? How, in a community like Lawrence, why are our kids not first?
Can you give us an example of some of the maybe conversations that were had there are making it seem like the kids aren't first? Do you have any examples?
I was on the COVID committee, so I heard a lot of the conversation, and that wasn't just through the education. There was medical professionals there as well, and a small amount of parents there in this group making these decisions. And I really feel that the parents don't have a seat at the table to have. Everyone was concerned about how the teachers were going to experience this. And if that became the only conversation, and the conversation that us as parents were what we were trying to do and support our kids, and going to work, some in an office, some working throughout the community to keep our community moving. Let's just say I was disappointed that a lot of our businesses, most of our businesses were open. People were functioning, and our kids were at home. And I think that overall, this thinking about running and supporting it's supporting a community, and what are the values of our community. I think that's what it really comes down to as we start breaking things down and what's important here. And I moved to Lawrence to raise my daughter. So I'm here for the high values that I expect, and I thought of, but I know exist in this town. I think we just have to start asking the right questions, and stop with the amount of distractions, and think about kids, what they need.
I know. And then that had to be, and you've obviously most likely had these conversations, I would say, with people that the COVID, when it happened, you've got so many polarized viewpoints. And we just alluded to that here a little bit ago, because you've got some that no masks whatsoever, some that are going to wear 3 masks because they should. And then from the leadership position, when you're facing a pandemic like that and you're trying to figure out what to do, you have those extremes and then everything in between that you're trying to solve for. You're trying to please everybody, and it's just not going to happen. And so in a case like that, one, understanding the intense pressure that the leadership is put under, but then also looking at what may have been done, what may not have been done. So what are some things that you would possibly, change, but also with keeping all of that in mind, knowing that you're going to have to be dealing with all these two extremes, these two polar opposites?
Well, last year there was a parent group that was one of 5, let's just say, amongst this really much larger group that were advocating to get kids back in school. And but when I took it a step further, I went to Dr. Lewis and I started just working out a plan based on the obstacles, air quality and mask and sanitation and square footage. And I said, okay, what are the obstacles? What do we need to do to get our kids back in school? I met with the facilities director who's no longer working here. Let's just say that. He's amazing, Tony. And so I went into several schools in elementary, because that was going to be one of challenging for square footage. And we were just starting to see what could we do. But that didn't go very far. I don't think they wanted parents in there. And so when I looked a little deeper, I heard there was a plan. There was a plan to get kids back in school. That plan was not executed. I think they probably finished about 80%, and the trust wasn't there, and then the teachers weren't comfortable, and it led to a really tough place. And at the end of the day, the teachers ended up doing so much more work online, and then they had kids hybrid, and then some teachers' children could go 4 days, so then they had 3 lesson plans, and so they were trying to support these kids, and parents were really upset, very upset. And my issue right now is there's a divide there. There's an issue with trust and communication. I even questioned, how are these kids going to feel when they walk through the door? From the experience they've had with parents and the conversations that go on in their household, and then to bring that back to the classroom. And again, how are we going to support all these experiences? I think you just have to look at the entire situation. But if you're leading and thinking about kids first, it starts eliminating other issues, or the most vulnerable. Okay, how are we going to support a population of parents that couldn't afford to have their kid go to a pod? Students were in pods, or a lot of kids were just going to work with their parents and things like that. So now going back, how is that going to feel? How are the kids that maybe had the one-on-one with possibly a stay-at-home parent, and then the kids that were alone? A lot of kids were at home alone, and they weren't turning on their they were barely engaging. So that's a huge divide. And we talk about, that's equity and divide. And we have a much greater divide now than anything that we've mended in the past. I think we have a lot of work to do now.
Yep. So now I wouldn't say we're completely out of this, but we've gotten a lot of information about what happened in the past almost year and a half now, so we can understand what worked, what didn't, and now that you've seen what hasn't worked, and you've got ideas for what could work, taking all of those considerations into play. One, putting the kids first, and it almost seems like I get the feeling that as we've been talking about this, if we keep that focus on the kids, the rest of it will be able to come along. It's like it will make it easier for the teachers, possibly even for the administration, and ultimately what is better for the kids is really what we're trying to do anyway with education. Right?
Yeah, no, for sure. But, after last year, I have, kind of to speak to the audience, your audience here. I mean, about 600 students left the district. Last I spoke to Dr. Lewis, about maybe 5 weeks ago. They weren't exactly sure on those numbers and how many were coming back. And so that's a huge deficit that we're going into the school year with. And so we have a huge deficit based off decisions that were made last year. And I, refuse to say this is just, COVID, well, we were one of 2 districts that were shut down as long as they were in the entire state. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you, I'm a host parent to a student who goes to Seabury, and they were in session, they were in school, and they were doing their thing. And so there is going to be there's work to be done now with budget issues, keeping families in Lawrence, and why stay if they don't try, even more families this year. Recently, I've heard moving away. So that's an issue. And then there's a big conversation between unions and there's 2 unions now at the school, and they are a lot of conversation, a lot of questions at these forums about teacher pay and pay for the staffing. And I will tell you, how does that work? Huge deficit. The staff wants to make more money. And in the middle of that, we have children that are now behind, a significant amount of them, and we need to move them forward. So there's nothing simple about that or the decisions that are going to be made. A lot of talk of closing schools here, and there's going to be tough decisions that have to be made, and we don't have any other choice but to try to get things moving in the right direction, and not everyone's going to be happy.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And so this is coming up very soon. August 3rd is the primaries, and tell us how that works.
So there are 12 candidates, and the primary, August 3rd, it will go to 6 candidates, and then from there, November 2nd, it will go to 3. There's three seats available. So this is a big turnout. And then some of the questions I was asking at the clerk's office, they predict a good amount of voters this year. So voting, asking questions. I think some of the conversations, even with parents, or grandparents, my child goes to private school, or I don't have children here. But if you're a resident of Lawrence, I think you should pay attention to who's being elected, because it has a huge impact on the vibrance of this community, and having, yes, housing is great right now. Nate, I just listened to your podcast. But, we want to keep it that way. And to do that, we need to have great schools and supportive community. And that's again, to bring it back, that's what I'm here for, to help support that.
Yeah, absolutely. And my listeners are going to be the majority of the grandparents of these kids that are going to the schools. If your grandkids are here in the area local, if you're lucky enough to be grandma or papu right around here that you can, babysit for the kids that are my age that, need babysitters and all that, that works great. So yes, this is definitely affecting your kids, your grandkids, because your kids are the ones that have to deal with your grandkids in these situations at school. So this is affecting a lot of people. This is one of the reasons I wanted to bring Myranda on, just to bring a little bit more awareness to what could be going on. If you haven't been feeling it personally, just to know that it is out there and she's trying to do something to help. And so, Myranda, we've seen there's a lot of signs in our neighborhood with your name on them. So you're well represented in this area, I think. And is there anything else that you'd like to cover? I know we've asked quite a few questions, but obviously there's been a lot of forums that you've gone to. So if there's anything else that you want to touch on here before we go, let me know.
It's mostly for your audience, especially, I would say, it's just getting out and vote. And I am, the forums were pretty intense. Let's just say that there's a lot of strong opinions going on. And I think that I will say I didn't hear a lot of conversations around the kids and the students and all the students. I think every child needs some extra support right now, from mental health to academics. And I just think people do need to get involved and to vote. So that is, I appreciate you having me on here for that, for sure. But I'm really hoping that people get out and vote and just don't wait and then wish they had.
Mm-hmm, definitely. And is there anywhere that people can find you, or do you have any type of a website or anything that talks about what some of your beliefs are in this category?
I do have a website. It's my name is long, so I feel as if, why don't we put that in?
Put it in the show notes. It'll definitely be in the show notes.
Put it in the notes. I have a website, Facebook page. You can email me. I want to hear people's experiences. That's another thing that is really important to me. Teachers too. I mean, that's how you get the real story. The day-to-day stories that our kids went through, and teachers trying to do their best and having some challenges, and how we can best support them. But my email is mzfor497@gmail.com. So you can certainly, can go there, but website and Facebook page. So.
All right. We'll make sure to link to those. Okay. So any other parting piece of guidance before we head off here, or anything that you'd like to tell my listeners?
Well, I am here to support students and to give a voice of the parents. I will say, if one thing that I felt a lot of parents were experiencing last year is we felt very helpless, and we did not feel heard. Our situations and our needs, and pushing and advocating for our children, it really it went in and out the other, in my opinion.
Yep.
So I think it's time to get parents' voice as a part of this conversation, and I'm ready to ask those questions and get involved and hope get some accountability for our students.
All righty. So let's get out there and vote. And I would say that when it comes to the children here, again, we've got so many of them that, like I said, could have either did very well or didn't do very well. But those that are behind need a little extra. So it's time to put the power in the hands of those that can help. And some people I know, I've always heard that when you feel like your vote doesn't count, and in the local community, if you really want your vote to count, the local community is where you can have the biggest say. If you think about just the vast majority of the numbers that are out there, maybe it has a smaller voice in a nationwide election, but it has a huge impact in the local elections. And the local elections are what affect states, and then it can affect and so it all starts from this very small area. So if you want to go make a difference, get out and vote.
That's right. Thank you.
Well, Myranda, thank you for your time here. We'll make sure to link to everything in the show notes, email address, website, Facebook page, all that, so people can connect with you, ask any questions that they may want to ask of you, and help make a difference.
Very good. Thanks again.
All right. Take care.
Bye.